children. Welcome to the English class. Today we are going to start a new topic, summary writing or summarizing, which is a part of your creative writing section. Now, what is summary? You may know what a summary is, or you may not know what a summary is, but you have to learn this skill because this is a very important life skill which you need when you are working, even after you grow up, or you have your own business, or you may be a writer or a poet. So this is a skill which you have to learn right now, and then you have to keep using it. Now, what is a summary? Summary writing is creating a shorter or smaller version of the original text without losing its key points. In your class, that means Form 6, we are going to ask you to write a summary of a text which you have already read. But in senior classes, you may be given an unseen passage like you have in the comprehension section, and you may be asked to write a summary. Now, summary writing simply means that you have to write a shorter or a smaller version. That means you have to write whatever you read in the text in short. It is almost one third the length of the original text. But then you can't ignore or avoid writing the key points. All the important points have to be written and in short, and the unimportant points have to be left out. A summary begins with an introductory sentence that states the title of the text, author, and the main point of the text. That means you have to start your summary with one introductory sentence that is to introduce the reader to what you are going to summarize. So it should state or tell the title of the text, the author if you know, and the main point of the text. That means what the summary is about. You can have a paragraph or a poem on something with a lot of stanzas or a lot of paragraphs if it is a prose. But you have to quickly read it, which is called skimming. Skim through it and find what the paragraph is about or what your text is about. And then you have to mention this main point. It may be about the benefits of exercises, so you can write the benefits of exercise. It could be about meditation or the joy you get when you read books. So this one main point has to be mentioned in the text. And then the summary has to be written in your own words. You can't just copy the words from the original text. You can mix two sentences. That means you can combine two sentences and make them one. You can use conjunctions. You can use some other words and make it shorter and interesting. You cannot write your opinions or comments, whether you like it, whether you don't like it, because you have to write about the text and whatever the original text says, only the key points or the important points, and leave the unimportant points and make it shorter. Now, how to write a summary? What you should do if you want to write a summary? The first thing is, of course, read the original piece quickly to get a general idea. Whenever you get a poem or a prose, an article or an essay, you have to quickly read it in almost 1 to 2 minutes and get a general idea what it is about. Then you have to reread it and you have to take notes, or you can underline in the text itself. This time, the second time, you have to read very carefully and pay attention to all the important ideas or points mentioned in the text. You can jot down at random, but then the next thing you have to do is organize your notes. You may have written it in a sequence, you may not have written it in a sequence. So you have to then see and organize your notes. Then you have to first of all write the main idea. After, of course, you write the title. Sometimes they don't want a title, but usually you should write a short title, not a complete sentence. You can write just 2 to 3 words, even one word, and it should be interesting. Then you should draft a short paragraph. You should write a short paragraph taking all the points which you have jotted down, and then you should check your work. That means you should see whether you have written correctly, whether the sentences are framed correctly and are grammatically correct. Check the spellings and check whether you have included all the important points in your summary before submitting. Now, what are the qualities of a summary which your teacher will be looking for and which you should concentrate on or focus on when you are writing a summary? First, of course, summary has to be short. You cannot have a summary which is as long as the poem or the original text or prose or essay. It has to be much shorter than the original text, about 1/3 of the original poem or prose. That means if you have a poem of 15 lines, the summary would be just 5 sentences. You may have a prose of 24 lines, and what will be 1/3 of it? Around 8 sentences. It must include one main sentence that gives a general idea what it is about, and then some helping sentences which help or tell something more about this main sentence, and it should be written as a short paragraph. It should leave the unimportant points. We are not going to repeat the dialogues. We are not going to repeat the unimportant points which are there because we have to make it shorter. So we have to just take the important one or the key points and leave the unimportant ones. You have to give a short, interesting title to your summary. It could be the same as the poem or the prose original text, or you could give a different title. You cannot include your feelings or opinions. You cannot, in a summary, write whether you like something, whether you dislike something, whether you feel that it is something which is very good. These should be left out, and it should be written in your own words. Now, summary is something which I told you you will need again and again and again. Right now, you are going to get something which you have read, maybe one of the poems which you have read, or a prose which you have in your textbook. Later on, you can get anything which is not read by you before, and there and then you may have to make it shorter and write a summary. So you should remember all these qualities. First, you have to make it much shorter than the original text. But then that doesn't mean that you leave the important points. It must include all the key points. First sentence after the title should be the main sentence, which gives you an idea what your original text was about. And then you are going to write some helping sentences and form a short paragraph. Please remember to leave the unimportant points. In a summary, you are not going to try and include all the points mentioned in the original text, because if you try to include unimportant points, the important ones will be left out. You have to give a short and interesting title. You cannot include your likes, dislikes, feelings, emotions, hatred, love, anything of this sort. It should be written in your own words. Now, when you have to make something shorter, you can combine sentences. You may have in the original text 2 to 3 sentences which tell you about the different qualities of that thing. Now, when you are writing a summary, you can combine them using a conjunction. This tree is green, tall, and old. They may have 3 lines to describe that the tree is old, the tree is tall, and the tree is green. But when you are writing a summary, you can just put commas and write all the adjectives together. In this way, you will be able to shorten your passage. And if you have 2 to 3 qualities mentioned or 2 to 3 adjectives, you can do this. But then if you think you will not be able to make it so short, still you can make it short by leaving the unimportant words and the unimportant points. Now some points to remember, which you should remember while writing a summary. Shorten the text in such a way that all important facts are in the summary. Now I'm emphasizing on this point again and again that summary doesn't mean sticking to the word limit or just making it shorter. It means to make it shorter, but to include all the important facts. So you cannot leave any important fact. If you make it shorter, you have the correct length, but important facts are left out, then you lose marks. So please remember to include all the important facts, all the important points in the summary. The first time you read the original text, you have to skim the text. Now, 2 words will be used again and again when you go to a senior class. One is skimming, the other is scanning. So, skimming just means that you have to just glance through the text to read it quickly to get an idea. And scanning is when you read it with a lot of attention, focusing on the key points. So you have to skim the text, read it very quickly and just get an idea what it is about. Then you have to read the text again. That means for writing a summary or even for attempting a comprehension passage, you must read the text twice. First, quickly, just to get an idea, and then the second time you have to reread it carefully and understand all the points mentioned there in the text or in the poem properly. Then you can underline or you can make notes using the keywords. After you underline or note down the keywords, You have to frame sentences with the help of these words. You can join or connect the sentences using suitable conjunctions. In the text, these conjunctions may not be there. But when you are framing your sentences to form a paragraph, you can use words or conjunctions like and, but, because, so, and make them shorter by combining them. Frame grammatically correct sentences. And when you are framing sentences, you should see that the sentences are correct. And then you have to see the tense and use proper tense when you are writing a summary. You have to try and stick to the tense of the original text. Now let us take a poem which is there in your book, and it is there in your real English book. We have already read the poem Trees. Do you remember on which page it is? It was our second lesson, and it is on page number 10 in real English. Now all of you please open your books, real English textbook, on page number 10. I'm going to read the poem first, that is the original text, and then you look at the summary and decide what has been left and what has been included. You all can also read the poem with me. Trees, ready with leaves and with buds stood the tree. Shall I take them? The frost said, now puffing with glee. Oh my, no, let them stand till flowers are at hand. All trembling from tree top to root came the plea. This is the first stanza of our poem. Now I go and to the second stanza and I'm reading it now. Flowers unfolding, the birds gladly sung. Shall I take them? The wind said and merrily swung. Oh my, no, let them stand till cherries are at hand. Protested the tree while it quivering hung. Now the third one. The cherries came forth neath the sun's glowing eye. Shall I take them? A rosy young girl's eager cry. Oh my, yes, you can take. I've kept them for your sake. Low bending its branches, the tree brought them nigh. Now you see the name of the poet is Bjornstjerne Bjornson. So you know he was a Norwegian writer, and even if we don't know the correct pronunciation, we can just learn the spelling. And we should mention the name of the poet in the summary. The first thing is we mention the title of the poem, then we mention the poet, and then we have a sentence which includes the main point of the poem. Now, some children will ask me that when we did this, as incomplete summary of the poem was given and we had to complete the summary was much longer. Yes, it was longer because they had given you a help box and you had to take words from the help box and fill in the blanks. But here we will just get the text. If you get just the first stanza and you are asked to write the summary of the first stanza, you will just write the main point, and maybe because it is just five lines, you could just write 2 to 3 sentences. Then if you are given the second stanza, you have to focus on the second stanza, but then also the main point or the main idea of the poem has to be mentioned. Only third stanza, then I concentrate on only the third stanza. But here we have taken the whole poem, and as you know, that if you skim, just imagine you have not read this poem before and you are just reading it quickly to get an idea what the poem is about. And as soon as you finish glancing through the lines of the poem, you know it shows the effects of changing seasons. And the effect of changing seasons on what? On trees and the relation between plants and human beings. Now, it is not compulsory that you write these words only. You can write in your own words. You can write that the poem shows how the changing seasons or how different seasons affect the tree and what is the relationship between plants and trees. Sorry, plants and human beings. Here, the poem Trees by Bjorn Bjornson is about the effects of changing seasons on trees and the relation between trees and human beings. This is the main sentence or the main idea. Now we take the important points mentioned in each stanza and frame a sentence. In the first stanza, the frost threatens to take the buds, but the tree pleads not to do so till flowers appear. Now, when you are reading it a second time in the first stanza, you should have underlined the word the frost, because here which element of nature is mentioned? The frost. And then you should have underlined threatens to take the buds, because the frost threatens to take the buds. And then what the tree does was to plead not to take the buds till flowers blossom or till flowers appear. Now, in the second stanza, the wind wants to take the flowers. In the second stanza, it has already blossomed into flowers. And now, who comes in the second stanza? The wind. And the wind wants to take the flowers. Now, you know, when it is stormy, when it is very, very windy, and the wind blows, strong wind blows, it just takes away the flowers, because then all the flowers fall down because of the strong winds. So we don't mention the unimportant things here. Also, we focus only on the important point. And what is the important point? In the second stanza, the wind wants to take the flowers, but the tree protests not to do so till there are cherries. Again, the tree protests. Now, if you forget the word protest, you can again write pleads. You can write does not want the wind to take the flowers, because it wants the wind to wait till it turns to cherries or till we get cherries. Now, in the last stanza, who comes? A girl. In the last stanza, when a little girl asks permission to pluck cherries, now she asks permission. She doesn't threaten. She, like the wind, she's unlike the wind and the frost. They threaten to take away buds and flowers, but this little girl asks permission because she wants to pluck cherries to eat the cherries. Now, what happens? In the last stanza, when a little girl asks permission to pluck cherries, the tree happily bends down so that she can pluck them. And then in the end, what does the tree tell the little girl? The tree tells the girl that it had been saving the cherries just for her. Now you can see the poem has three stanzas of 5 lines. So how many lines does this poem have? It has 15 lines. and we are supposed to write almost one third of the original text. So we have taken first the main sentence, which tells us the name of the poem, the name of the poet, and what the poem is about. Then in the second sentence, we talk about what happens in the first stanza. Then the third sentence talks about what happens in the second stanza. And then the fourth sentence talks about what happens in the last stanza. And then we sum it up all by saying that the tree tells the girl that it had been saving the cherries just for her. Now, children, in today's homework, you'll have to write a summary keeping in mind all these points, and it will be from something which you have read. You'll have to summarize the text which you have already read, so I am sure you will find it easy. But then you must be careful not to leave any important points, to mention all the important points, leave the unimportant points, and to write first the main sentence and then last wind it up properly. And you cannot give your opinions or comments or show your emotions. Thank you, children. Have a great day. Till we meet next time.